Hey there lovelies, it's Sarah here from auraangelart.etsy.com, and this is my latest art journal video. If you watched the previous week's video, I worked on this lady on this side, and I was using from my book about Mackintosh. I was using a piece of artwork that he created, or a detail from it, called Reflections, and I used kind of the shape of the girl's hair and the wings as kind of my inspiration for my own pieces. And so last week I did her quite small, couldn't really do an awful lot of detail in the face. So this week I wanted to sort of experiment and change that around a little bit. So I wanted to have her face be a little bit bigger so that I can get a little bit more detail out of it. And I also wanted to try out some different markers. If you remember last week, I was using my oil pastels to try and create this kind of stained glass sort of leading effect that you've got in the black here and then in the gold on this one that I've done today. And that worked fairly well, but it was a little bit too thick for my liking. So this week I tried out something. I did a little bit of Googling last week and tried out something a little bit different. So in order to get the kind of watercolor resistant starting point, I used these paint markers, and they're oil paint markers. I think you often use them for writing on glass or notice boards, you know, in cafes when you see restaurants with the menus all written out in different colours. I got a little set from eBay and they seem to work really well actually, so I think I will use those again. You get a much finer tip on them, so it's much easier to be a bit more precise with them. So I've used those to create those stained glass kind of effects on her. I'm just kind of noticing some little bits that I've missed in the final stages, just adding this black from the Stabilo wall pencil. It's funny how you don't notice something until you've finished. It's interesting. So let me share with you a little bit of what I used to create this girl. I'm overall much happier with her than the previous week's version. I feel like it's a little bit more my style now. I'm happier with the larger version of this angel so that we can get a bit more detail out of her, but I don't feel like I'm 100% there with these at the moment. It's a little bit of an experiment, like I said last week, just trying out different things and seeing what I do like and what I don't. So for her face I used my favorite combination of paints. So I used my Portrait Pink acrylics, I used my Neo art bars, which are the same as the Neocolor 2s, water soluble crayons. I used my Prismacolor pencils, and I used a Jane Davenport paint over pen. I used my Uniball Eye fine liner pen as well, and I used my Pitt pens. So very much my favourite go-to supplies for creating and shading her face. And then for the rest of her, in terms of colours, last week I used this set of paints by Prima, watercolour paints called Vintage Pastels, and that had some lovely different shades that I used for this lady here. This week I decided to use a different palette by the same company, and this one is called Decadent Pies, which is a lovely name for a set of paints, I think. And again, some really nice colours in here. I didn't use all of them by any means, but in some ways I'm finding it quite inspiring to sort of limit myself to one palette for a whole painting, because sometimes I think you can have almost too many choices with regards to the paint that you used, and you can kind of get bogged down in that and just keep picking the same ones over and over, or you can end up not picking anything at all. It can be quite tricky that way. So for her hair I used Pecan. For her little scarf it was Blackberry. Blueberry was for her dress, and then underneath her wings I used this Earl Grey, but then I went over that with my silver gilding flakes. The background is banana cream, which is this colour here, and then this ring of aura is pumpkin, and then the energy inside there is peach cobbler. So you can see they've all got names of pies as well, which is really nice. So that's what I use for the most part for the colours. I also mixed in a bit of the white gouache that I used last week. I'm still really loving the kind of texture that leaves. I'm thinking I might need to think about getting a set of gouache paints, apart from the fact that I have far too many paints already. So for the wings, I used my indigo blue gilding flakes with the flitter glue to put those on. In the video, actually, you missed me putting those silver flakes on, just because I accidentally forgot to start up the camera. But if you look at last week's video, you will see me doing the whole process of that. And I think that's pretty much everything I used. I used my roller leather embossing tool again with the white gouache to add some detail to the very far background, and I used this little dabber. I forget what these are actually for. I think they might be for Zentangling, but I used that, both ends, the thick end and the thin end, to just add some dots and some interest to the page. I also used some metallic markers, some of these Pentel ones and some of these Kuretake ones as well, just to add some more interest to her. And overall, I'm quite happy with how she came out. I think there's still work to do to sort of refine this a little bit more. I want to kind of make these a little neater if I can. I like the sort of black outline. That works really, really well, but I think it does need to be neater somehow. So I'm going to keep working in this kind of style and just keep experimenting with my different watercolour paints and different colour combinations to see what I really like. So I hope you enjoy watching this lady come to life, and if you want to check out any of my art, I'll leave a link to my Etsy shop in the description box below this video. And if you have any questions at all about how I create or any of my supplies that I use, please feel free to drop me a comment. Thanks so much for watching.